Welcome to the Fat Fueled Family Podcast, where every week Danny and Maura Vega discuss topics that help families live a healthy and active lifestyle with their little ones, including nutrition and training, peaceful parenting, education, and mindset. To stay up to date, make sure to hit subscribe on this podcast and check out the blog at www.fatfueled.family. You can also find them on Facebook and Instagram at dannyvega.ms, at fatfueledmom, and at fatfueledkids, and Fat Fueled Family on YouTube. Enjoy the show.
Welcome to the Fat Fueled Family Podcast. I'm your host, Danny Vega, and I'm joined by my lovely wife, Maura. How are you, my love?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. We have an awesome guest today, someone I've known for, 15 years. No, what am I saying? More than 20 years.
15,
21 years.
I was like, our kid is 10.
21 years.
That's crazy.
I've known him, and he's a great dude, and he just gets it, man. He's all about simplifying, and I just think his content is awesome. So Drew Biemer is a former Division I football player, Division I USA rugby player, and amateur strongman. He currently works as a public affairs contractor in New Hampshire. In 1999, he was first team All-State tight end and helped block for the 1,000-yard rusher Danny Vega. You can find him on Instagram at Condition1. That's Condition WON, like one. And we had just a fantastic conversation with him from everything ranging from nutrition to training to becoming harder to kill. So I think you guys are really going to enjoy this, and we hope you like it.
Enjoy the show.
Hey everybody, I just wanted to take a quick minute to talk about our sponsor, Keto Brick. As you guys know, I have been around since the very beginning when it was just an idea, when Robert was getting ready for the show that took him pro, and he needed something to help him hit his macros, and I've seen it grow into the company it is today. Just so proud of my friend, and I'm so proud of the company he's built, the people he's been able to help, as he has several people who work for them, and so he's actually helping people make a living doing this now, which is just unbelievable and so inspirational to me. If you don't know what Keto Bricks are, they are shelf-stable fat bombs, for lack of a better term. They are 1,000 calorie bricks, and they have great ingredients. They have ketogenic macros, usually like 88 to 90 grams of fat with 30 grams of protein, and then the carbs are anywhere from 9 to 14. Super low carb, super keto friendly, and you can do all types of cool stuff with them. I tell everybody my favorite is Keto Brick cereal. I chop it up into little chunks and serve it with a bowl of cereal with almond milk or goat milk, which is my favorite. They have several flavors. They now have vegan and whey options. So they have the whey protein peanut butter as well as the old school pea protein peanut butter, which either one of them is easily in my top two. Go back and forth between those and the toasted almond coconut. So definitely go to www.ketobrick.com, get yourself some bricks, and use Vega for a chance to win a whole month supply of bricks. What's up, buddy? You got some nice flannel there.
Thank you. Just got done clearing my driveway.
Oh my gosh, I can't imagine how bad it is up there, because you're in New Hampshire, right?
Oh yeah.
Oh wow.
My gosh, if it's bad in Jersey, I can't imagine.
It's literally like, let me see. It was cold for like 3 days, and today it's 84.
It's incredible.
It's hot.
Well, Now that I know I can do business all via Zoom, I think I might be joining y'all in Florida before too long. Probably a little further south, maybe Marathon or Key West.
Ooh.
Dude, that's awesome. The only thing
We're from Miami, so.
Dude, if you go to Marathon, like, you really got to find a way to, like, you got to think about food. You got to think about, because, like, down there, things are like.
Marathon, you think?
Yeah.
I feel like they developed a lot of that. Maybe not Marathon. Well, but Key West living, I mean, I get it.
Key West is the best. I mean, it's freaking awesome, but like, you have to have. Yeah, I don't even know how you would. You really have to make sure that you have the ability to get food in and out of there. And dude, like hurricane season, like they'll close things down, and it's just. But I get it, man. I get Key West living, but like,
yeah, I get it. It's
even
so nice
if you do your consulting work, you don't have to be in the state. Like, for example, if you're doing something in your state, you don't have to be in the state, right?
Some of the time.
Okay. So like, but you could live somewhere else
Yeah.
and potentially fly there.
Yeah, of course I'm half kidding here. I mean, I'm probably going to be stuck to New Hampshire for a while now, but it's just a dream of mine.
I'm getting excited.
We were
it's a
like, all
dream
right,
of
come
mine.
to Florida. We love Florida.
I've been to the Keys a couple times, and I love it. I've never been there during a hurricane, so I have a feeling
don't
that
go
I
there
would
during a
have
hurricane.
a fallback point in New Hampshire for hurricane season for sure.
That's true. Yeah, you don't want to be down there during hurricane season.
Dude, honestly, like, and
But
it's
it's
funny
so
because
nice.
for us, like, we're moving not towards New Hampshire. We want to stay in Florida, but like kind of our plan. And actually, we have a guest coming on who's a financial planner guy, because I want to run these ideas by him. But we have a plan to get land here, and we got all these things that we want to do, and just kind of just become more and more independent. You know how it goes, bro. You know, we've had these conversations.
Yeah.
Drew's in the only, well, if Texas puts it to a vote and it actually goes through, then there will be 2 states who will at least have the option to secede. Because if I'm not mistaken, the way the law's written,
Oh yeah, New Hampshire too.
New Hampshire is the only state in the union that can secede or revolt against the union.
There's a right to revolution in our state constitution.
Yeah.
I'd love to see that hold up in federal court, but yes, in the state constitution, there is a right to revolt against the government. So
I'm sure it worked out for Wesley Snipes. I think he tried to use the 14th Amendment, which, I mean, is constitutionally sound, but I mean, no. That's not how it works. It's not like we're a nation of laws. It's not how things work. Anyway, let's get this.
But we have considered. We did consider maybe. I don't know that I could do it long term because I'm like always freezing. But we have considered living somewhere rough and cold. By rough, I mean cold, just because of the boys. Kind of as a way to make them stronger. Like I feel like it's hard.
Yeah, dealing with
so kind of just dealing with that. Like
when you go outside and you got to clear your driveway, it's not that cold right now or that snowy, but there have been times when it's been negative, 10, and which means my garage is 0, or maybe 5, and I got to go out and I got to start up the snowblower, and then you go out and you have, 8 or 10, 12 inches of snow in your driveway. My driveway is 100 feet long, so that's about a 1-hour job. And,
yikes.
So Florida's looking great this time of year.
Yeah. I honestly I can't even fathom that. Like the coldest I've ever been in is what, maybe? Like Utah?
20s, 30s maybe?
Maybe.
Like in New York, it gets in the single digits sometimes, maybe, but it's like probably 15 is the coldest. But that's a whole different story than sustained, below 0 and close to below 0 temperatures.
Yeah, that's intense.
For sure.
Well, let's get right into it. We're excited about our conversation today. And we always lead off with the question, what is the most critical problem you are currently trying to solve?
Well, the most critical problem I'm trying to solve is, as I've told Danny, I'm trying to become harder to kill. Okay. And I'm not saying that I am hard to kill. I don't want that to come off as being overly badass. I'm just saying I'm harder to kill than I was yesterday. Okay. Mm-hmm. And that could be from disease, that could be from, health conditions such as obesity, things like that. It could be, from other people. I took up Jiu Jitsu. I'm terrible at it.
Jiu Jitsu,
but I'm less.
It's harder when you're strong.
It's very hard.
But I'm less terrible than I was a week ago. So I'm getting choked out by people who weigh 170 instead of people who weigh 140.
It's humbling.
So I'm moving in the right direction.
Yeah, it's humbling. Yeah, that's why we put our boys in it. We're like, hey, listen, it's not about size or any of that.
No, definitely.
And it teaches you humility, man. Like
it does. It teaches you humility.
You face adversity every day. I'm starting again in April. I already have a reminder in my phone because Robert is starting. And I was considering it. And then I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go all in with jiu-jitsu and just commit to it, because I did it from December of 2018 to March of 2020, and I was getting better. And then, my membership ran out, finances. I wanted to make sure that the boys had what they needed because, it's expensive, man.
It is expensive.
So, but I'm definitely ready to get back into that. Like, I'm totally on the same page as you, man. Like, I love that. But let's give our readers a little background on Drew Biemer. First of all, why is Terrell Davis better than Deuce McAllister? No, I'm just kidding. Let's
Deuce Staley, I think you meant, right?
What'd you
Deuce
say? Well, I'm
Staley?
just talking about. Oh, Deuce. I was thinking Deuce. Yeah, Deuce.
Yeah.
I forgot. Deuce Staley, not McAllister. By the way, guys, this is because we used to play NFL 2K in the basement of our dorm, and it was freaking awesome. We're what do you call it? Stiff arms were the best thing ever on
unstoppable
NFL
stiff
2K.
arm.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, talk a little bit about your upbringing, how our paths cross, and all the way until your creation of Condition One. What is it, and what is your mission with Condition One?
Sure. I grew up in a town called Haddonfield, right outside of Philadelphia. I would say a pretty normal upbringing. I had great parents. I think I was raised very well. They taught me things like respect and hard work and all that good stuff that stayed with me, through everything I do. After high school, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I was a mediocre student. I didn't have a ton of choices as far as colleges went. And I wasn't even sure I wanted to keep playing football because my senior year was just a disaster. So my parents talked me into looking at prep schools, and I looked at Petty. And when I went to visit Petty, the football coach, Coach DeLaurentis, met with me, and he talked to me about playing football for Petty. And I said, I got to be honest, I'm not even sure I want to keep playing football. And he said, well, then I got to be honest, you're not going to get into this school if you don't. So I said, okay. Okay. I guess I'm going to play football. Yep. So that's where Danny and I met. Danny had come the opposite direction, geographically anyway, and also football-wise. You were, the top running back in Miami-Dade as a senior?
Yep.
Yeah.
Had some offers, but you really wanted to go to Columbia, right?
Yep.
So he was going there to, I guess, get good enough academic credentials to get into an Ivy League school. I was going there to just get any kind of credentials so I could get into a decent school. I ended up going to the University of Richmond. I was on the team there for 2 years. I ended up leaving school for personal reasons, but then going back at night while I worked during the day. It was a great experience. I've been up in New Hampshire for 10 years now. I work in public affairs at a law firm. We do a little bit of lobbying, a little bit of public relations. And all along the way, and I've moved all over the country. I actually lived in Richmond, Virginia when Danny lived in Richmond, Virginia. But we lost touch during that period of time of, I'm going to say, 05, 06, somewhere in there.
Yeah, man. We caught up after the fact.
Yeah. So I lived there. I lived in Louisiana for a while. I lived in Connecticut for about a year. I lived in Rhode Island. One of the things I did every place I went is I would always seek out a good strength gym, usually a hardcore powerlifting gym, someplace where I was guaranteed to be the weakest person in the room. Because that's how you get stronger, right? I've also picked up a lot of different philosophies and a lot of different approaches to things like strength training. And being a regular guy, not a pro athlete or bodybuilder, not a, Instagram celebrity yet anyway, is I think a lot of what I do is I kind of speak towards what more regular people, the 90-95% of your meathead former athlete crowd is really looking for. Because I think there's a lot of misinformation out there, because certainly economic interests bleed into it, right? People are trying to sell the newest thing or the newest diet. And some of that stuff's good. Some of that stuff's not good. But one of the things with so much information that's a blessing and a curse is when you and I were in high school, we couldn't just look up, The Rock's program that he used to get ready for the movie Pain and Gain. Okay. We can do that now. Okay.
So true.
The bad news is with the increase in availability of information, you have an increase in experts, pseudo experts, people who just look good on Instagram but don't really know what they're doing, can't explain it to people. And it's made things overly complicated. So, I've trained in Olympic style lifting, in powerlifting. I was never good at any of those things, by the way. I competed in strongman. I was in one competition. I came in 10th out of 15, which was pretty good because I didn't have access to any of the implements before the actual contest. I just showed up early and practiced with the yoke and the keg and stuff. But yeah, I have I draw from a lot of diverse experiences and points of view, which is good because I can disagree with people while respecting them, and vice versa. So I think there's something to be learned from almost any system out there, but I'm certainly not a zealot towards any one thing.
I love that.
I love that, dude. And it's funny because like when I was in grad school, I, Mickey Mariotti came in and he was a high intensity guy. And like, I'm in the beginning of my career and I'm all about, at the time I was kind of conjugate, but I was also kind of, just a more, I hate to say it, but like what I considered more sophisticated style of coaching and training. And it was just ignorance. That's all it was ignorance. Because, I would see some of the things he did and it would be like train to failure and then fail like again and again and again and again. And one thing Coach Mariotti was really good at was he would bring all types of coaches in with different styles and he would have seminars and we would just do seminars over the weekend and he respected all of them. And I had a guy, what was Matt Delancey? He was the coach of all the Olympic sports. And he was like, look, man, there's no silver bullet. The ultimate is basically getting your athletes to understand exactly what you want and executing it and getting that buy-in. And that's what Coach Mariotti had, so you got all these guys, and Drew and I, we talk about this all the time, like on the phone, we'll talk about it, like how these guys will come in and either, whether it's because of an agenda, because they want to seem smarter or they want to impress a client, or they truly believe that this complicated new fitness trend or whatever is going to give them the results. A lot of the time it doesn't make any sense. And it's like they're putting the exercise or the style of training before the needs of the client.
Yeah.
And it's just, it doesn't make sense. So like now, obviously, as we learn more and more, I totally agree with what you said. But at the end of the day, like keeping it simple, keeping it, and that's what you're really, really good at. And that's why I think a lot of people are going to definitely, guys, you got to follow condition 1. That's WON, like you win your conditioning.
One. Like
and it's really simple. We'll talk about all of the things that he offers on his page and we'll talk about his philosophy. But let's talk a little bit about, let's go back to, the fact that you and I, again, we've been doing this for so long, decades, right? We're students of the game. And so I think it's important to talk a little bit about, especially because we have, all these young bucks who don't really appreciate everyone who came before them. And they think that, because they did a powerlifting meet or 3 powerlifting meets, that they're now all of a sudden a powerlifting coach or all this. And like, I used to get angry back in the day because I used to be like, well, they're taking my money, but obviously that doesn't make, it doesn't make sense because there's charlatans and everything. But let's talk about, I want to give you an opportunity to talk about your influences in the strength community, for those who are interested in like learning the fundamentals. Who are some of the people and some of the influences that have helped you kind of get to where you are?
Sure. I guess I'll start with people I've met, yourself included. Back in high school, when I met Danny Vega, I was just doing the bench press and curls workout because nobody had ever told us
skip leg day?
Any strength and conditioning. And Danny at the time had a strength coach out of Miami who was writing us programs. So I was just doing whatever Danny was doing. And it was basically bodybuilding. Is that fair? It was basically bodybuilding.
Was it bodybuilding?
But when you're a high school athlete and your primary concern is getting bigger and stronger and adding muscle, bodybuilding isn't the worst thing in the world because you can always reprogram, right, when you get to college. and become a little bit more fast twitch. So that was light years beyond anything I was doing on my own. Then, in college, we had a okay strength and conditioning program. It probably would have been better suited for rugby than for football because it included a fair amount of intermediate distance running, like your 1 mile to 2 mile run. It included a fair amount of body weight training and a lot of stuff that you'd call like stability stuff. It was during what I call the stability craze of the early 2000s when everybody was saying, you have to do bench press on a Bosu ball with 50-pound dumbbells.
Oh my gosh. So true.
We were doing partner assisted or partner resisted lateral raises, it was just a strange time for strength and conditioning in general. In fairness, our team won games by being in much better shape than everybody else. We won a lot of games in the fourth quarter. So we probably didn't have anybody on the team who benched over 400 pounds, which is fairly ridiculous when you look back at it now. But very good shape, very military style training regimen, and then won a lot of games in the fourth quarter. Ultimately won the Atlantic 10 and then made it to the semifinals in the 1AA playoffs. This is when I was redshirted, by the way. So I was just eating, iso blocks all day long, in practice on scout team. Somebody's got to do it. So after that, when I was in Richmond, Virginia, I started training at a gym called the Weight Room. And the Weight Room used to be really small. It's expanded into a very large professional facility now. And it was a place where hardcore powerlifters lifted. And I was not and never have been a powerlifter. I've looked like one at different points in time. You pick up a lot from training with people who are that strong. And this doesn't have to do with me specifically, but one of the anecdotes that I picked up from this gym that has stuck with me, because people always get into turf wars of geared powerlifting versus raw powerlifting, right? There was a guy there named Nick Minetti, who at the time was the record holder in one of the federations, one of the more legitimate ones, for raw drug-tested powerlifting. And it was certified drug-free, and it was raw, like belt and wraps. And he was a super heavy, and he totaled 2,100 pounds as a super heavy. And all the other guys would get into it, raw versus geared, and this is better, and that's better. And what this guy, one of the best raw powerlifters in the whole country at the time, had to say about it was he said, they're two completely different things. One person is just using different tools than the other person. He said, you wouldn't take a long distance runner and say that guy's raw, so his times are legit, but the long distance cyclist, he's cheating because he has a bike,
Right.
And I said, that's a really enlightened, humble way for a raw powerlifter, right, to look at this situation, because he was somebody who very easily could have just crapped over everybody in triple ply. You know what I mean? Very easily. So from there, I went to a couple other places. I ended up working in Louisiana for a year and a half. And while I was there, I trained at the gym where Gail Hatch, the Olympic weightlifting coach, trained his lifters in Baton Rouge. And that was interesting. I'm not really good at the Olympic lifts, but it's good to train things like Jiu Jitsu that you're not good at. I've gone to a handful of gyms up here. Concord, New Hampshire was very, very small as far as state capitals go. Not a lot of gyms. The place I go to now is called the Zoo. And it's fantastic because it's a combination of basically like a CrossFit gym with a powerlifting gym, with a bodybuilding gym, with a commercial gym. So they have a very big AstroTurf track with kegs and tires and prowlers. And they got one of those rack setups for CrossFit with, 100 pull-up bars and, squat racks and stuff. And then they have monoliths and squat racks and Olympic platforms. And then they also have all the machines. So
That's awesome.
It's a really good place for what I'm doing now. And then, of course, early this past year, in the springtime anyway, we were closed up from probably, I'm going to say maybe March, April, and most of May. I just worked out in my garage. And in New England, it's a perfect time to work out in your garage. I'd say you couldn't do it now. You could, but I'm not David Goggins, so I only work out in 70
and you don't
degrees.
have to.
Yeah, I only work out in 70 degrees. That's a card that I'm going to flip maybe a little bit down the path, but no, it's 10 degrees outside right now.
Brutal, man.
That's brutal.
And even in the summer, it gets up to 95 for a couple weeks. So,
for a couple weeks.
Yeah, for a couple weeks.
When does it start warming up?
It's funny
because for us, like, I totally forgot, like, winter.
Probably
it feels like it's over at this point.
Oh,
do you think it's over?
Yeah, 100%.
Gosh, I was hoping we'd get like one more wave.
Everybody jokes up here that northern New England's gorgeous 2 seasons of the year, those seasons being spring and fall. But then they also joke that we don't ever get those 2 seasons.
Yeah, you're like, if we had them.
It skips from still snowing in, April and, and 40 in May to just like, boom, 85, and then the fall feels like it's 2 weeks long,
Yeah, and then it's winter. Well, let's talk a little bit about diet now and nutrition, because, we love talking about that. So, we understand that there are different ways of eating for different seasons. Even us, like, we stick to keto and carnivore, but we still go along with the seasons, and we'll find ourselves, during these colder months, eating some more carbs here and there.
Oh, you mean the warmer months?
No.
It should be in the warmer months.
Well, not really, because I feel like I want like a hot soup or whatever.
Oh, okay.
Anyways. But for different seasons, different types of activities, and et cetera. But we also have overarching principles and what we call non-negotiables, really. How would you describe your nutrition philosophy, and how are you currently eating to support your goals?
Well, so, I was talking to Danny about this as an example, maybe a couple months ago. And I said, if I took Danny and I sent him out into the woods with a bunch of tools, and I said, I want you to find a tree, it can be any tree. I want you to make a totem pole out of that tree. It can be anything. It can be an eagle. It can be a bear.
I love this.
I don't care what it is, but you're going to make a totem pole, and it's not going to be great because you're not an artist, but it's going to be the best that you can do. Okay. People have the natural problem solving ability and the natural intuition to look at a tree and say, the first thing I have to do is I have to chop it down. Okay. And then maybe after it's on the ground, I sort of take big hacks at it with an axe, and I make it sort of generally the shape I want it to be. And then way, way, way down the road, you're etching the detail into the eyeball, or you're putting the feather on the eagle. But you don't walk right up to the tree when it's still in the ground with a scalpel and say, I need to carve, the detail into the eagle feather, and dieting is, I'd say it's simple, but it's not easy. To be perfectly honest with you, I think it's simple and easy if you just know what you're doing and you make rules and you follow a plan. For me, that plan has always been some type of paleo. And I'm not saying people have to do that, or they have to do keto, or they have to do carnivore. I just think that some type of paleo is the base for almost any healthy diet. Because even if you're an athlete, like during rugby season, I would switch from a high fat paleo to a lower fat, higher carb paleo, where I'd take out red meat and most of it, and I'd add in, lean meat, but I'd also add in sweet potatoes, and I'd only eat sweet potatoes on training days and game days. So regarding the tree that you're turning into the totem pole, I came from a pretty good place about a year ago because I had, 90% of, my stuff squared away. I've been on paleo for 9 years. I've eliminated entire types of food out of my diet. That's one of the things I tell people is if you're an adult, and this comes later than with some people than others. It came fairly late with me. Is you know your own tendencies and you know your own triggers, or at least you should. And if you don't, you really need to sit down and you need to do some self-reflecting and find out what those things are. Because when you ask yourself honestly, are you the type of person who can eat 2 Oreos or drink 2 beers or eat 1 serving of whatever snack you like to eat? Because with me, the answer to most of those questions is no. So I choose to eat 0. My wife will have 2 Oreos or 1 cupcake, you know, and that's fantastic. I wish I had that level of discipline. And she would look at me and she would say, I wish I had the level of discipline to not eat, cookies at all. So it's different. One's not harder than the other. You just need to decide and figure out which one of those people you are. So for me, the final thing I had to do, and it was a big thing, is I had to quit drinking alcohol. And one of the reasons why my drinking had gotten away from me was because in my early 30s and when I was playing rugby, I could walk around at a fairly lean body weight based on activity level and based on the fact that if I only got my carbs from drinking light beer, then I was never like, a can of light beer has like 4 or 5 grams of carbs. Okay. So give 10, you're at 50 grams, which is still by most standards a low carb day. Right. So I could get away with that. I'm not saying 10, but I'm saying I could get away with drinking. And then I had to look in the mirror and I had to say, when you look at your diet and you look at your goals, what's standing in your way? And are you going to take ownership of that? And for me, I just had to take ownership of that. And like I said, I'm not going to sit down and have 2 IPAs because I wasn't drinking to enjoy, the beer. I was just drinking out of habit, right? So, so I think you really need, as far as diet goes, when you look at, turning that tree into that totem pole, is what are the big things that you can knock out like right away? And what I would tell somebody who isn't super, super overweight, but let's just say you're maybe 50 pounds overweight, like you're 250 and your healthy weight is 200, or maybe you're even 300 and you want to get down to 250. I would say, first of all, you gotta go with some form of paleo or keto or something similar. And at a minimum, cut out bread and processed sugar. But then after that, multiply your calories by 15 times body weight and commit to actually tracking your food and eat that much for a month. And in a month, get on a scale. And if your scale's going down, if you're losing weight, then just keep doing what you're doing until the scale doesn't go down. And then maybe the next card you flip 2 or 3 months from now is you go down to 12 times body weight in calories. But I think with diet, and like what I did is I went from 275 in last February or March to by the end of this past year, I was 225. So I lost 50 pounds in a year, eating 4,000 calories a day, all paleo, no alcohol, higher activity level. And the point is that you need to flip cards one at a time, because you're not going to wake up. If you're really, really out of shape, you're not just going to wake up and be David Goggins all of a sudden, for Pete's sake. You're talking about somebody who's in the highest 0.1% of motivated, dialed in alpha people out there. And it's great to watch videos if they get you fired up to go crush a workout from time to time. But at the end of the day, you need to try to figure out what's sustainable for you. And what's sustainable for you, I guarantee, is not eating 1,500 calories a day or doing Slim Fast or Weight Watchers. Because what's the off-ramp, right? What's the off-ramp? You're gonna lose your 50 pounds, and then you're gonna put on 60 when you start eating normal again. So you just got to make a lifestyle change. And just to wrap that up, the final lifestyle change I had to make was alcohol. That's in the category with the Oreo cookies and the bread. Oh, and one other thing too, talking about discipline, and one of the things I admire from the if it fits your macros crowd, but this also is where you see a lot of pitfalls from them, is they'll save up their calories because they know they're going to have a piece of pie with dinner. And they're like, I got 500 calories in the tank or 600, so I can have a piece of, grandma's pumpkin pie. And then they eat that and they realize they can't only have one piece of pumpkin pie. And they go off the rails.
Exactly.
And when you're keto or paleo, it mitigates your ability to go off the rails. First of all, it also mitigates the damage that you inflict on yourself if you do go off the rails. Going off the rails for me, Thanksgiving, is like eating 2 pounds of brisket.
Yes, exactly.
And that's my only meal the whole day. So 4,000 calories or 3,500 calories. So basically it's an intermittent fast. You know?
Exactly.
That's off the rails. Off the rails on a normal day is I go to the grocery store and I buy a pint of keto Halo Top.
Yep.
And I eat the whole thing.
Yep.
Living on the edge.
You know what I mean? That's
us.
So I mean, it's easier when you just eliminate entire categories of things from your diet. And a lot of people are going to listen to this and they're going to think that's completely insane. But to me, that's far less insane than saying, oh, I'm actually going to enjoy, one serving of Lay's potato chips, or 2 cookies.
Yeah, it's not.
No way. Yeah, same thing with me, dude.
Not interested.
Yeah,
I agree.
And honestly, the more like we would have a cheat day back in the day when we did that, it would become a cheat weekend, and it would become a binge, and then
because Monday's coming, so you're like shoving it in your mouth at all hours of the night because just for no reason at all, just because Monday's coming.
Yeah, and it was miserable, and dude, like,
and you don't lose weight.
No,
you don't lose weight.
Plus, it's
my rule for a cheat is pretty simple. Is you need to be instinctive with it, and that's troublesome because a lot of people have bad instincts. Okay?
Yeah.
My instinct for a cheat is, I got up and went for a walk downtown, couple-mile walk with my wife on a Sunday or Saturday, something like that. And we get downtown, and I'm like having trouble standing up. I feel like I'm going to pass out. And she's like, are you okay? And I said, I'm just really depleted. I've been working out a lot. I haven't been really eating carbs. I probably didn't even eat a lot of fat the day before. Maybe I wasn't getting the electrolytes and the sodium. Something was off. And I was literally about to faint from walking. So I said, I need a cheeseburger. Okay. And so, once every 3 or 4 months, I'll eat some kind of sandwich. And I ate the cheeseburger, and it was like a performance enhancing drug for me, with fries. Exactly. But the rule for cheating with me is a cheat meal can be anything that a normal person would consider an actual meal of food. Not a whole pizza, not a sheet of brownies, but a cheat meal can be, I'm going to go to, Five Guys and order a burger and a large fries. That's a cheat meal. Okay. A cheat meal is I'm going to go to Pizza Hut. I'm going to eat, 4 or 5 slices of pizza. Okay. That's a cheat meal. When you look at Instagram, one of the things I think is funny, but it's kind of the worst form of humble brag, is the absurd cheat meals that like fitness bodybuilder celebrities eat.
Oh, it's so absurd.
Because first of all, they're probably not telling you that, like pharmaceutically what they're on.
They're on insulin. Yeah, they're on insulin and all these other things that drive up their.
It's also a humble brag where they're like, haha, look at me. I can eat 8 cheeseburgers, and a dozen donuts. And I still have, 4.5% body fat. And I think a lot of people look at that like normal people who just, go to CrossFit or, go to regular gym. And they're like, man, I dialed it in all week long. I can eat a dozen donuts, on Sunday, and you can't.
Yeah.
It's a bad idea.
Dude, it glorifies disordered eating, to be honest.
Oh, yeah.
And, first of all, Maura, that's her hunger nowadays is not that. It's like, I need energy.
Yes. When you were saying that, that's how I feel hunger these days. It's not like that hangry feeling. And that's what I wish, like, of course, and you only know when you're on the paleo or like ketogenic side of things, because when you are eating that way and you're eating bread and you're eating gluten and you're just, if it's your macros, no matter what it is, your hunger signals are wrong. They cannot be trusted. You feel that hanger, those like hunger pains in your stomach. I never feel that. I feel like how you felt, where you're like, I'm going to pass out. I feel like I need some fuel because I feel like I don't have energy. So yeah, it's interesting you say that. And like, it's like those cheat weekends, it's not worth it. And what ends up happening to the normal person, like, and I wouldn't even consider us normal, but I wouldn't even recover until like Wednesday sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
And you don't even really lose weight. It would take me all the way up to Wednesday to start feeling somewhat normal. And like now it's almost Friday again.
Yeah.
Time to cheat.
One of the things too that people need to be cognizant of too, especially with paleo, is that you can't just eat paleo. You have to eat in the spirit of the diet too. Okay?
Yeah.
Right.
Is not because it's labeled paleo. It's a paleo fast food.
In the spirit of the diet, what I mean is, if you're having a special occasion and you want to bring a dessert to Thanksgiving dinner that you're actually going to be able to enjoy, then maybe you make brownies out of, raw cocoa and almond butter and mashed up bananas, right? And almond flour. Okay. But if you think you can eat those all the time, you're horribly fooling yourself. And the other thing you need to worry about, or at least I need to worry about, is because something's paleo does not mean that it's not a trigger food. For me, almond butter is a trigger food. I can make a recipe that has almond butter in it. I will put a spoonful of almond butter in my waffles, in my paleo waffles that I make, and that's fine. But if I eat one spoonful of almond butter out of the jar, then I'm going to eat the whole jar, So that's another category of thing that you need to just say, And the other thing too, and this is going to come off as really antisocial, and it is, but I don't care, is don't share your food with people. When I order food at a restaurant, I've made a deal with myself that I'm going to let myself eat all that food. Okay. And I said, it's like if you were a smoker and you said, I'm only going to allow myself to smoke 6 cigarettes a day. That's it. Only 6. And then somebody comes up to you. It could be some random person. It could be your wife. It could be anybody. And they say, hey, could I have one of those cigarettes? You're like, hell no, you can't have one of these cigarettes. I only got 6 a day. That's what I allow myself. So what I do, when my wife cooks, is she immediately puts 5, 6, 8 servings of leftovers in color-coded containers that I know are mine in the fridge. And then those are my meals for the next 4 or 5 days, are those color-coded containers. So, people will ask me, can I have one of your chicken wings? And I'm like, absolutely not. I go, we can put in another order for a 5-piece if you want, but you're not having one of mine.
Dude, you get it, bro. Like, that's exactly.
I will not split an appetizer because you're just setting yourself up for failure. At least I am.
If you're like us, where you have that. Yeah, I totally agree, man.
So, that's just another thing. And people will say, to a certain extent that people who think like you and me are probably just replacing one eating disorder with another eating disorder. And I would say, well, fine, who cares? It's a healthy one. You're putting fail safes in place to make sure that you don't fall into traps that you set for yourself. Okay?
Yeah.
The guy who knows he can't eat 2 Oreos knows he can't eat 2 Oreos, and he still decides to go down that road.
Yeah.
Right.
It's kind of like saying, we're trying not to get pregnant. We'll play it by ear. You say you play it by ear, and all of a sudden you're going to get pregnant, You already knew that going into it. So, and one more thing, because this is something that Maura was doing even in high school. And it's like, if you have specific goals, there's a finite amount of resources, willpower, decision-making ability. And sometimes if it's one of these goals that's kind of a stretch goal, you might need to say, hey, I won't be able to go to this event. I won't be able to be here unless it's something, important. Like, I'm not saying to, not be with people, because we always argue that, relationships are pretty much the most important thing, in this plane, on this existence. So lots of pearls there, man. And I think a lot of people, again, it brings it down to like the simplifying it, keeping it simple. You mentioned how like, okay, you start off, you get rid of the processed sugars, you get rid of the stuff that's masquerading it as food that's not food, and then maybe you lower your carbs, and then maybe you add some activity, but you don't go 0 to 100 right away, because I always tell people, like, how many days, like for example, like in a consult, how many days can you commit to lifting, and how many days are you currently lifting? If it says that I haven't lifted in a while, I'm trying to get back into it, I always love that one, and they want to go 6 days a week, it's just like, why don't we start with 2 or 3?
Yeah, exactly.
And just, it's all about action. Like even Goggins, you mentioned Goggins, and Goggins is like, it's about taking action. Like if you watch a Goggins video, and he said this too, like if you read this book and you get all motivated, that's just a little Band-Aid.
Yeah.
When the weather's really cold and you want to go for that run, you're not going to rely on motivation. You're going to have to look at your sneakers and you're going to have to be like, I got to do this, and that doesn't come from motivation. So, also, we've had all these conversations.
Also,
what were you saying?
I was saying also, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. If it's cold out and you're looking at those sneakers like David Goggins and you're like, it's 10, 15 degrees outside, it's not wasted if you just put those sneakers on, drive to the gym and run on a treadmill.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yes. It's
you don't
better
have
than
to
nothing.
be 100% Billy Badass, because that's not sustainable.
Exactly.
Unless you're in that top, 1/10 of 1%. Is if you can walk, if you just walk for a half hour, then go do that. I see it all the time. I'd say, if I can't go to the gym and get in a real workout, I'm just going to do nothing.
Yeah, at least walk, exactly.
And now I say,
you gotta
go to the gym and do a real workout. I'm just going to do some kettlebell swings in my garage on Tabata intervals.
You're gonna feel really good after. You're gonna get something in. And again, I think this principle, even in David Goggins' book, we keep bringing him up, but like I keep thinking about, one of the challenges is like, do 5% more next week, and then do 5% more the week after that. You don't have to do what he did and run on broken legs, or sign up for 100-mile race having never even done a marathon. He's like, I don't recommend that. But you and I, we've talked about training philosophy and nutrition, but I think one of the things I love and that I think you really understand is the value of simplicity, scaling training to different people, regardless of the latest, shiny objects and fitness trends. So this to me is what makes a good coach. And I just picked up a client who has been with some of the big names, and I'm just like, really, man, that's what that person said. And they'll talk to the person from a nutrition standpoint, and they'll say, I don't do well with grains. And then all of a sudden the person's adding, bagels to their post-workout. And, he was 3 months with this person, and he was like, well, what if I just do this? And the coach would be like, yeah, that's a good idea. And then he's like, after a while, he's like, I realized, like, I don't need this person, So a good coach is someone who can really explain the value of an exercise and give them something that they can replicate on their own. You and I was going on a run the other day, and we talked about this. So like, explain to our listeners, how you structure your training, and how you kind of explain it to the people that you help, because we all have different goals, but again, it comes back to having principles. So you have like a set of movements you do, and I love that, because it doesn't matter if you're at a gym, if you're at home. So yeah, talk a little bit about that.
My goal, the old saying about teaching a man to fish, right? Is I feel like a lot of personal trainers and dietitians would rather just give you fish, because then you need to keep coming back.
Right.
Or more specifically, they want to sell you fish, right? And what I want to do is I want to prepare people to do all this stuff on their own. I don't know if that's a sustainable business model or not, but one of the things that I've noticed is with a lot of former athletes, even very high level collegiate athletes who are now 30 to 40 years old, there are a lot of them out there who retained virtually no information from being in a Division I strength and conditioning program, which is remarkable to me, because I just pick up on a lot of things through observation. But there's very large percentage of the strength and conditioning trainee crowd who literally depends on you handing them that. It used to be a paper booklet. Obviously, it's probably on an iPad now, but handing you that workout or emailing you that workout or going in the app and saying, do 8 reps at whatever percent and then do, but they don't retain any of that information. So one of the things that I tell people is, first of all, don't major in the minors. People will look up a workout program, that the Philadelphia Eagles do or the New Zealand All Blacks do. And you'll see a guy who's a rugby player who's maybe 30, 35 years old, plays men's club rugby. And, he's out there doing speed ladder work, but he's overweight and runs, a 5.40 or something. And you'll say to that person, you're majoring in the minors. You shouldn't be wasting your time on speed ladder work. You should be hammering anaerobic conditioning and just basic strength movements. And they'll say, well, you don't know anything. I looked up the New Zealand All Blacks workout and they use speed ladders. And I say, they're fine tuning. They're elite athletes who are fine tuning. They're like the bodybuilder who, is timing up when they take their BCAAs or their post-workout nutrition, down to the minute, right? But the kid at the gym you go to, that's all he focuses on. He says, Phil Heath takes BCAAs 3.5 minutes after his final set. That, right? So and you're like, kid, literally forget all that. When you're getting ready for the Olympia, then, ask me again then, or more specifically, find a coach who knows about this sort of thing. But as far as majoring in the minors goes, there's a lot of it because it's easier to do than doing the things that are hard. It's easier for me to say, I need to get quicker feet, so I'm going to do a speed ladder. You know what's going to get you quicker feet? Not being overweight. Having a high anaerobic threshold to where even if you're kind of slow, you can maintain 80 to 85% for an entire match, right? So with the actual training that I do, and when you talk about concepts, it's like, what do you need to do? Is I say you need to squat, you need to hinge, you need to press, and you need to pull. And at a minimum, I would say you need to do all those in equal quantities. But in reality, you need to squat as much as you hinge, and you need to press as much as you pull. And you break it down further, you have horizontal and vertical pressing, obviously. You have horizontal and vertical pulling. And if you want to break down squatting and hinging further, I'll say a lunge goes in with squats because it's quad dominant, a single leg, unilateral Romanian deadlift. That's also a hinge, but so you should probably do equal amounts of unilateral work too. But literally, when I was training in my garage, I had a sandbag and a weight vest and a Tabata timer, and I would do squats, Romanian deadlifts, push-ups, and sandbag pendlay rows. And that's it. And loaded carries with buckets of rocks. But as far as the weight room exercises, push-up, pendlay row, Romanian deadlift, squat. And that's really all you need. And that's not all Danny Vega needs. That's not all I need anymore. But that's all that guy trying to get by training at home for a few months while the gym's closed needs. That's what the guy or girl trying to get into shape to look better at the beach really needs. And the answer to every question you have is always going to be answered by one of those things. They're going to say, how do I get better quad sweep? You need to squat more, right? How do I get, how do I bring up my lats? You need to pull more, and even people get caught up in your press. We had this discussion, you and me, either in person or via Instagram, where we said if you could only do 4 exercises for the rest of your life, which you would do. And for the press, I said I would do a TRX push-up, and you said you'd do a shoulder press. And I like shoulder presses more. But the TRX push-up, I like because it's also kind of an ab exercise, right? It's a plank.
Yeah, it's a better ROI. You get a better
so,
ROI for sure.
So, but you can have those sort of, semantical debates, but at the end of the day, the answer to every single one of those questions is going to be, you need to squat, you need to hinge, you need to press, and you need to pull. And that's what I do. So when I structure my week, I will do a couple different ways. I'll have horizontal push-pull day, which is benching and rowing, basically, right? And then I'll have vertical push-pull day, same idea. And then I have squat day and I have hinge day. That'd be a four-way split. The reason I structure it that way is because if you do the typical bro split, first of all, you're going to skip legs day because that's the end of the week.
Yeah, they always put it Friday. We talked about that the other day.
The other thing is you're going to come out of the gates. Maybe you watched a David Goggins video over the weekend or something. You're fired up. Monday's universal bench press day. You rip the doors off the gym. You do 50 sets of chest, and tries. And then maybe on Wednesday, when back day comes around, you're a little hungover or you got to work out quick because, your wife needs you home. So you do like 3 sets of face pulls, right?
Face pulls.
For back day.
Oh
it's a rear delt to be back. That's a debate. That's a hill I'm willing to die on. Is rear delt is a pull, so it's back.
Yeah. I consider that back day too.
You do 3 sets of face pulls and you're gone. You just did 40 sets of bench, 3 sets of face pulls. And you didn't even mention the fact that you also have shoulders day, which is also pressing, right? Mostly. So at a bare minimum, if you do horizontal push-pull day and you're like, I got to get out of here quick. Like, I don't have time. You do 5 sets of bench, 5 sets of T-bar rows, walk out the door, okay? You didn't kill it. You're not going to brag about that workout, but you did everything you absolutely have to do, and you did it in equal proportions. So that's why I structure it that way. The way I do it now is I'm adding in, I always say if something's important enough, it's important enough to have its own day or its own workout. So my workout now is upper body day, lower body day, abs day, loaded carries day, HIIT conditioning day, and then steady state conditioning day. And they're not in those orders, and it doesn't always come out to days because I can do one in the morning and one at night. If I know I'm going to be gone for a couple days, I can double up. The system for upper body day is I do in this order, 4 exercises in this order until I feel like I've done enough. A bench, then I row, then I shoulder press, then I do a pull up or a lat pull down. And if I make it through that cycle once, then, like I said, I did everything I needed to do, right? But if I'm feeling ambitious, I'll do bench, I'll do Klokov, I'll do pull up, I'll do a pendlay row. Then I go back through, I'll do a machine chest press, machine row, machine shoulder, machine pull down. And then when I go back around the final time, maybe the chest is just a fly, the shoulder is a lateral raise, the rear delt or the horizontal pull, if you will, is a face pull or a rear delt fly or a band pull apart even. And the vertical pull is like a straight arm lat pull down, and sometimes I don't even get that far, and then on lower body day, I start out squatting, then I do a deadlift, then I do a lunge, then I do a unilateral hinge, and then I go through that cycle again. So by the end, I'm doing, hack squats supersetted with, band pull throughs or something like that, and then carries day is all carries, all on a timer. Steady state day explains itself, either a really long ruck or a kind of long run. And then HIIT day is I just go by instinct. I do bike sprints, rower sprints, wall balls, battle rope, med ball slams, stuff like that. And like I said, it's great to be instinctive, but only if you have good instincts.
Yeah.
Right.
Because sometimes
I agree.
I've told people before, I've said, I've gone into the gym, I've put 135 on a barbell, I've squatted it for a warm-up set, and I've said, nope, and I've walked right out the door. Okay?
Yep.
And I said, because I'm not right in the head or physically, I'm not going to give this workout its due. I'm going to go home and reload and get my head right. I'm going to come back tomorrow. And what people do when they hear that is they'll do that like once a week.
Yeah, exactly. Got to be honest with yourself.
And I'm like, I do that like literally once a year, but I'll go in and I'll say, I'm not going to do this, because I'm not willing to put in the work, and like I said, it's, I'm not David Goggins, so I'll keep going back to him, but I want to drive that home because everybody knows the videos and he hypes up him because he's a remarkable human being and one of the most motivating people out there. But what you need to realize is that me and you are not him. So we need to do what's practical for us,
Yeah. And like, you're talking about, first of all, I love this because, this is what I had this foundation with my first coach. Like, it was like, no, put the curls down. Don't even touch that until you figure out how to squat. Don't even add weight until you know how to. And, Brian Carroll, my powerlifting mentor, was like, look, every single time you get under that bar, whether it's an empty bar or, whether it's a warm up or whether it's a max attempt, you got to go with aggression or you're going to hurt yourself. Mm-hmm. And like, if I'm feeling something like yesterday, I was doing deadlifts, and it wasn't even heavy. I was doing, and I was doing sets of 3 at 4:15. That's all I was doing, kind of a speed thing. And on my last set, on the second one, because my hips are tight right now, I had a strained QL on my left side a few weeks back, and I kind of felt the last set before it was 5 sets of 3, I think. And the 4th set, I felt a little bit of something. And then on the 5th set, I just did 2 reps and I walked away, But again, you got to be honest with yourself. Like you said, you can't just, I'm not feeling it today. No, that's, you're copping out. So
you also can't just always say, like, I've also said, I've put that 135 on my back a couple times and I've said, I'm not going to do it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go do legs, leg press or hack squats instead. And that's fine.
Yes, that's what I usually do.
Sometimes, you know what I mean? But again, that's not, if you're doing that all the time, you're absolutely fooling yourself. And there are no mandatory exercises. That's not really what I'm saying. I'm just saying that people will use any excuse to avoid doing things that are hard.
Exactly.
And don't let those kind of things be an excuse to avoid things that are hard. Use your instincts as an excuse to, sort of train more smart, I guess is how I'd put it.
Yeah, like Ben Pekulski, my buddy, he's like, when you're young, you train with your balls. When you're older, you train with your brain. And like, so there's some of the benefits. And I know a lot of the, my buddy Terry, he's the chaplain for the Dolphins. And he's like, a lot of these guys who've been in there, we're talking about 8 to 10 years and plus, they're not putting bars on their back. And that makes sense, because when you take out a stability component out of something and your livelihood is dependent on it, you will protect yourself. You'll still keep the musculature and all that stuff. You need to have that structural integrity. That's why, you do these things. But when you have a base like that, again, we're talking about people who are high performance machines. If you don't have the trunk stability and everything starts in the trunk, you're not gonna just get by getting on leg presses and getting on hack squats and stuff. They're great movements. And then again, some people have long femurs and that kind of sucks. I have long femurs, so it's like
the tall guy excuse, though. I mean, you hear that a lot, it's
yeah. But then he, like, for deadlifting, it's like not even fair. He barely bends down because his arms are like orangutan arms. So his range of motion is so small compared to me. I'm like the total opposite. I'm like long torso. Yeah. I have to sumo deadlift.
Like when Travis and I front squat, like his butt is touching his heels.
Oh no.
But then when
Danny's
I deadlift,
you're almost there. Come on, you can do it.
Yeah. And when I deadlift though, Travis is like, "Oh, you're so strong." I'm like, "Man, I'm built to pull." And you barely have shorter femurs. You're gonna squat better.
I learned a lot of that the hard way because I had a hernia repair and then I had a hernia repair.
Wow, Danny needs one of those, I think.
And one of the things they told me when I walked out of the doctor's office and went for the follow-ups is they said never lift more than 50 pounds again for the rest of your life, which is total nonsense, because if you even said that statement, that means that, in my opinion, you have an insufficient foundation of knowledge, because there's no such thing as lifting 50 pounds. I mean, in absolute terms, there is, but a 50-pound shoulder raise is different than a 50-pound goblet squat. Okay, those are two completely different leverages, two completely different strains on your body. The 50-pound shoulder raise, you're a complete savage. 50-pound goblet squat, pretty light, right? So when I went to PT, they had me do a lot of like leg raises and flutter kicks and stuff. And they were like, but don't lift heavy, like ever, okay? Ever again. And then they gave me the whole sort of condescending, do you make money from lifting weights? Are you a professional athlete? You don't have to do this. Why would you do something if you don't have to do it? So I sought out the advice of actually an old coach of mine. He's an interesting guy. My linebacker coach at the University of Richmond is this guy named Matt Rhodes, who is a contributor.
Matt Rhodes, powerlifter? Yeah. I know Matt Rhodes. Yeah.
He was tall and thin back then. He was in his early 20s probably, and then I think he met Vincent DiCenzo, and he became like a heavy or a super heavyweight powerlifter. And I remember emailing him and just saying, do you have any experience with this? And his advice to me was, he said, you need to work, if you're going to get strong again and injury free, you need to work on its intra or inter abdominal pressure. Intra. Yeah.
He's speaking my language right now.
Because, you're blowing up the balloon, right? Yeah. If you only ever do leg raises and flutter kicks for your abs, and then your lower body component is all leg presses, then you're never going to accomplish that. And he was right, so I started really, really light again. And bear in mind, I was talking to him like 5 years after the surgery. I mean, I had gone through 5 or so years of just tearing scar tissue. There were some mornings I wouldn't be able to stand up straight, because I'd kind of be heeled over in sort of a hunched position. So that was a complete game changer. Literally squatting and deadlifting again in my late 20s and early 30s was the single best thing I did for overall strength and overall health and injury prevention. This was all while I was playing rugby too. So, I mean, that kind of stuff was just making me healthier, injury free all around.
Love it.
Yeah, I love it. So, we're kind of continuing on about, the topic of doing hard things, but, Danny told me about your mission for 2021, and we absolutely love it because it focuses on resilience, versus avoidance. So what do you mean with this whole concept of becoming harder to kill? You did mention it at the beginning, but what do you really mean by it?
Yeah, because it's several areas, right?
Several areas.
Well, I think it may have come up in a conversation with Danny or maybe another friend of mine. I don't remember when
I know you mentioned it to me before. Yeah.
But, one of the things that happened in 2020 is my father passed away. And I think I told Danny about this. I don't remember. He did not die from COVID, but I think it's probably fair to say he died because of COVID, meaning that the medical system and the hospital system, at least in New Jersey where he lived, was stretched pretty thin, pretty close to the brink from this whole thing. And, that was sort of one of the things that I'd already stopped drinking by that point in time. I'd already, lost he passed away in July. So I was probably halfway. I'd probably lost, 25, 30 pounds. It was down from 275 to 250. When that happened, it was another one of those moments, kind of like when the pandemic hit, where I said, I have to wire everything tighter now because the chance of backsliding really, really far is very good. like I had quit drinking before the pandemic. I'm going to say like January or February of last year. And I didn't say I'm going to quit. I just said I'm not going to drink for a week or whatever. And then after a week, I said, hey, I feel better. I'm doing more cardio. I have more energy, So I just kind of wrote it out. And then once I got to the 1 month mark, I was like, well, why not just keep doing this?
Keep it going.
So when my father passed away, it just sort of further, sort of tested my resolve. And I said, this is another one of those times when a lot of people out there would use this as an opportunity to, I don't want to necessarily say have a victim mindset, but they would use it as an excuse to say, it's okay if I just start drinking again, because, we had a toast. We weren't allowed to have a funeral in New Jersey, but we had a get together in my brother's backyard, and some family friends and I had a toast. And I remember they were like, just have one, just literally have one. And I was like, I'm not going to do it, because, I know the cost. One of the things I would do that I still do is I keep one tall boy of Coors Light in my fridge at all times. So when I open up my fridge, I see the tall boy of Coors Light, and I know there's no such thing as one, right? So that tall boy of Coors Light is sitting there mocking me, and I look at it and I'm like, not today, Coors Light. Nope.
Do it with the peanut butter, Danny.
Nope.
Yeah, right?
I'm going to defeat you, So the harder to kill thing, I mean, that comes in a variety of different, it manifests itself in a variety of different things. I'm not saying that I'm some, prepper or anything like that, but I have taken an increased interest in preparing for, different scenarios. I mean, one of those, the pandemic is, as far as, pandemics go, I think we probably had it fairly good in that, we live in a capitalist society. The market adjusted. The delivery system of goods and services, by and large, went off uninterrupted. You could go into a Sam's Club in the middle of the thing, and there were pallets of potato chips and, barrels of Cheetos and beer and anything you needed. There was never a shortage of anything other than toilet paper. But it does get you thinking that, how close were we to actually having a major disruption of some kind, right?
Correct.
So it's important to be more self-sufficient. And a lot of people, even hunters and sportsmen and people who are tactical shooters or preppers or anything like that, will say, yeah, I put in time at the range and, I have a stash of MREs in my basement, but they're in terrible shape. You know what I mean? And it's not an all or none proposition. I think the way I looked at it was, I need to be healthier. Being strong and fat isn't going to save your life, right? Yeah. Probably not. So lose weight, better shape, focus more on relative strength, and particularly anaerobic conditioning. Also a lot of rucking thrown in. I have a buddy who would go on, we only did it a couple times when the weather got bad, but we'd go on long rucks where we'd put 50-pound vest, 50-pound pack, so 100 pounds, and, ruck for like 4 hours, 5 hours on trails in the mountains and the woods and stuff. And then you have your overall health, dialing in your diet. That could be just eating healthier, like we talked about before. It could be exercising more. And then with me too is putting in some range time. If you're going to own firearms, you should be able to use them. You should be proficient with them. And then the other thing too was the same buddy of mine who I go rucking with talked me into taking Jiu Jitsu. That's like jumping into the deep end of the swimming pool with ankle weights on, because you realize immediately, you're like, holy crap, if I ran into somebody on the street who knew Jiu Jitsu, I wouldn't be able to defend myself.
You'd be screwed.
Not yet, anyway. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it recalibrates your perspective on how resilient you think you are when you start doing Jiu Jitsu and you say, like, all the stuff I learned in Taekwondo class as a kid, that's more or less completely worthless.
Yeah.
But the other guy knows Jiu Jitsu, you know?
Yep.
So that was the whole thing. And the most important thing is, you know, a buddy of mine said, you're hard to kill. And I said, I'm not hard to kill. I'm harder to kill than I was yesterday. And that's the whole point, is if you're 300 pounds, you know, again, you don't have to turn into David Goggins. You just have to be harder to kill slightly than you were yesterday. And if you follow that trajectory, eventually you'll get to where you're going. But I mean, being harder to kill might mean you run a 15-minute mile, you know, and in a month you run a 14-minute mile.
Yep.
You know, I mean, that's an improvement. That's a huge improvement. And then the other thing too is, you know, when you look at your family, and I'm not a parent yet, but I hope to be one before long, is when you look at your family, your wife, you want to have kids, how is your lifestyle potentially going to impact them moving forward? And that could be drinking alcohol. Okay. Everybody has a story about some relative where alcohol had some sort of impact on their life. It could have made them more hard to deal with. It could have made them abusive. It could have just made them lazy. It could be your physical health. You know, do you want to live long enough to see grandchildren? You know, do you want to be healthy enough when you're 80 or 85 to be able to play with your grandchildren? You know, I think one of the blessings that we have that our parents' generation didn't have, so we have a higher level of understanding about the long-term effects of exercise on things like bone density. You know, I'm going to be really curious to see when you and I are 85 years old, maybe not 85, but let's just say, you know, 75 or something, if we can still maintain a fairly high level of activity relative to what 75 and 80-year-olds maintain today. You know, because it used to be you work a hard job, so you're in shape when you're in your 20s and 30s, but then you retire at, you know, 55, right? And then you don't do anything for the next 30 years physically. You know, you weren't lifting weights, you weren't exercising, so you become frail. Will you and I be frail when we're 85? I don't know, but I doubt it.
I don't think so.
But I doubt it.
Yeah. Dude, man, there's so much.
We've seen it. Like, who's Mike Muscle's wife, Deanna? Like, I don't know how old she is, but she did an experiment and she had a bone density test, or what is it, like an MRI done?
She had a full body MRI.
A full body MRI done, and the doctor was in shock. He was like, "Your bone density is that of like a teenager or something," and she's got to be, I don't know. I don't know.
She's super lean.
She's so, but she's so strong and
healthy.
Super
like
strong. It matters. Like it matters.
It does. And like, that's what I tell my dad, like, go for your daily walk.
Yeah.
Do the sauna. Like, those are the little decisions every single day. And I love the message here, man. Like, first of all, you've come so far. I remember like 5-10 years ago talking to you, and it was just kind of like an occupational hazard. It's like, I got to entertain people, you know, as part of what I do is we go and we have drinks, you know, and like, you can say that, and it's a perfectly logical excuse, but you know, you decided that you just made that decision. I had a guy, you mentioned the tall boy. I know a guy who was addicted to methamphetamine, and he had a bag, dude, a bag of meth for a month.
That's tough. And especially that's like what the worst recovery rate is, meth. Yeah, but he had it, you know, his brother's still hooked, you know, living in a van. You know, he's like, just stay on my property. At least, you know, you're safe. But that's exposure therapy, and that's that same, you know, harder to kill thing.
I don't know about meth, but you know, real quick, I don't know anything about meth, fortunately. But I had a stepbrother, but you know, our parents were married for over 20 years. So he was a brother. And he died of a drug overdose. He was an opioid addict. He died of a drug overdose in 2012. Wow. And so I know what real, actual addiction looks like. Okay. I know people in my life who have tried to quit alcohol or even smoking cigarettes and go through holy hell and just can't do it. So I'm not talking about those people right now, but in my category of drinking. And I feel like most of the people out there who just drink every day or are doing something destructive every day, calling themselves an addict to a certain extent can be a little bit of a cop-out, because you're saying it's not a decision, it's just who I was destined to be, right?
Yeah, and then you don't do the work that actually, because the addiction is it's just a symptom of the sickness, the real sickness that's happening inside. And like, some people need inpatient, they need that 60 or 90 days.
Some people, most people just need to take ownership, really. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you got to take ownership no matter what course you take, no matter, how you fix it. At the end of the day, no one, the worst of the worst, most hooked addict is going to eventually have to have some responsibility.
Yeah.
And that's part of what they do. Like, they break you down so you can realize, like, you're not as special as you think you are. I love the fact you mentioned, your dad's death, and like, it doesn't make sense to me now. Obviously, it hasn't always been this way, but it's like, why would you use a tragic event as an excuse to practice self-destructive behavior? Like, and a lot of people say, well, I deserve this. Well, you deserve
terrible. I think it's more of a coping thing.
Yeah.
It's numbing.
Then, yeah, it is. It's numbing. But then it's like, if you really know already, it's like, if you know that it's self-destructive, that it's going to be.
Of all the inspirational videos.
Isn't enough sometimes with those feelings.
Of course.
Feelings are, yeah.
Of all the inspirational videos out there, and a lot of them are, good for just going into the gym and getting fired up, or like before a game or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's not sustainable, right? The one that's sustainable for me, meaning actually had a lifestyle change, is the video Good by Jocko.
Oh, I love that one.
Great.
Because
so good.
I'm not saying that anything that happened to anybody in 2020 is good. And that's taken out of context. That would sound bad, because you'd say it's not good that people died. It's not good that, we went through a pandemic. None of that stuff is good. But at the same time, you have to be able to look at things after the bad event happens or while it's happening. And you have to say, there's some good in here somewhere. For me, is if somebody died because they were unhealthy or something, then hopefully that leads you to decide to be more healthy, Yep.
Right.
So I agree.
Yeah. And that's like, wake up calls are there for a reason, and we need to like be conscious of them. And we need to like, it's better to be, oh, what am I going to do with this extra ammo? Like, I'm not telling people to hoard ammo, especially because it's, come on, man. Like, we all need ammo. Don't, like, be nice, but don't hoard the toilet paper, but, buy a little bit of extra here, a little bit of extra there, without being too greedy. And it's funny, you mentioned the one more thing before we finish this, is like, you talk about, like, even in the prepper world, like, I don't know if it was you, Drew, or if it was someone else who told me, like, they had a truck full of ammo and guns, and they're like 300 plus pounds, and they got to walk somewhere, like, and they had to leave the truck.
Someone's chasing you, like,
it's like, dude, you're not.
You won't even make it to your truck.
You're done, dude. Like, you lost all this prepping that you did, and you have all these food stores, and you got it all down. But like, if you had to actually go somewhere and you had to ruck, or you had to, take a pack full of stuff, you wouldn't last.
Dead, you gotta run.
Yeah, sometimes you gotta run.
Yeah, there's not a huge. I'm happy to see fitness, kind of CrossFit style fitness, bleed into the tactical crowd, and vice versa. You look at the Tim Kennedys out there, and the tactical games. It's nice to see that nexus of sort of your functional fitness with your tactical crowd, because even now, like, if you go to the range, it's by and large a bunch of overweight guys with like $1,000 worth of tactical gear, right? And really, you should have cheap gear, but your body should be the thing that's expensive, right?
Yep. I love that.
I love that.
High functioning,
Yeah, your optic is not what makes you a good shooter.
Yeah,
your $3,000 optic.
I don't like optics at all, because it's something that can break. You know what I mean?
But what about for a rifle?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you could always, like, with the regular, but Yeah. So, dude, so let me ask you one more thing. Like, what is there anything that you're currently working on? And just kind of, we know condition one. Is there anywhere else online where people can find out more about you?
Well, on Twitter, I'm just Drew Biemer. I don't put any fitness stuff out there, though. It's just, sort of retweeting political things and,
Yeah.
What am I working on now? Being a better husband. That's
great.
That's a struggle. I got a lot of work to do in that regard.
Same.
Same. And just like I said, becoming harder to kill, and that's a tough path too. One of the things that I'll say to people is you're not competing with somebody at the gym or somebody on TV or Instagram. You're competing with yourself from yesterday.
That's right.
That's it.
That's right.
And as long as you're moving in the right direction with that, they don't have to be big steps. They can just be steps. If it takes me a minute before I get choked out instead of 30 seconds.
Or what if, sometimes you can just say, look, my goal this time around is to pass his guard or to not let him pass my guard.
Right.
That's what I'm going to focus on today. And if I get that goal accomplished with, blue belt, purple belt, whoever it is that I go against, that's a freaking win. You know, you might have gotten submitted 5 times, but that one skill that you were focused on that day, you were the best guard passer, sweeper, whatever it was that you were doing that day. So, bro, great having you on, man. I freaking love it, bro. I want more people to know about you, man, because it's we've had a long friendship, man, and I love the way you think. I feel like we're so alike, and we got to see each other in person soon.
Good deal.
Come to Florida.
I'll come down there. Yeah.
Well, we can go in early August.
Well, you could come up here in the summer and go to.
I wouldn't mind going in the summer. Yeah,
I
actually feel like there's probably my kids would probably love it.
They would.
You have nature stuff to do.
You have gorgeous kids too, by the way. Adorable kids.
Thank you.
Thanks, bro. That's the other thing. You got to meet them.
Yeah, you got to meet the boys. They are boys. They're awesome.
Well, thanks, buddy.
Thanks so much for coming. Chicharron. That's exactly what they are. Chicharrones.
That's what they are.
Yeah.
Thanks, bro.
All right. I'll talk to you later.